I am Games, and these are opinions. Multiplayer shooters have never really been my jam. Despite having fond memories playing Halo 2 online in its heyday, online shooters have only really been an excuse for me to hang out with my friends online. Never something I'd go out of my way to play by myself. Single-player games have always been more interesting an experience to me. But the world of Splatoon has a charm to it that drew me in regardless of my lack of interest in the genre it belongs to. So I found myself, despite my better judgment, paying a full $60 to give the game a shot. And I'm honestly glad that I did. Splatoon 2 is a game that has the foundation of a competitive multiplayer shooter, but on top is a light-hearted, comfortable coat of paint and some considered additional mechanics that make it far more appealing to someone less enthused with the genre. Splatoon 2 is a rare example of a comfy, welcoming online competitive shooter that can enthrall even the most cynical. Obviously, this tone is most blatantly represented with the kid-friendly cartoonish graphics, but it's a bit more complicated than that, even going down to the lobby system. Where something like Call of Duty is an obvious hardcore war simulator, despite being played by little kids, Splatoon has a lobby where after a match it's populated with the players you've been fighting with and against just hanging out in an urban setting, letting you walk up to them and compliment them on their clothes and get a chuckle from their doodled signature messages, really selling the idea that, to Inklings, this is just as much a game as it literally is to you and I in the real world. Even if you rage quit after a particularly bad streak of losses and come back to the lobby fuming, the casual setting reminds you that maybe you should just chill out about the whole thing like your avatar is. Of course, aesthetics can only get you so far. The aforementioned rage quitting is a rare occurrence in the first place thanks to the most brilliant mechanic in Splatoon, the entire concept of its main game mode, Turf War, as it completely eliminates the embarrassing to enraging issue of skill floor curb stomping that so many competitive multiplayer games really don't have a satisfying answer for. Because when you first start Splatoon, or any multiplayer game, you're inevitably gonna suck. Your first match makes you unquestionably the worst player in whatever queue you got thrown into. You don't know the map, you don't have any upgrades, and you only have a rudimentary grasp of the basic loadout you're given and the goals of the game itself. Basically, you're almost certainly going to lose any skirmish you engage in. If this is your first attempt at a battle royale game like Fortnite or Apex Legends, this means running around a massive map you have no context of for minutes at a time, maybe picking up some cool looking guns you're excited to try out, only to get sniped out of nowhere or ambushed without ever getting a shot off and having to start again from square one. For something like a Call of Duty or a Battlefield, this means just charging into the fray and getting steamrolled in your own personal war of attrition as you desperately try to learn the ropes. If you're playing a team-based game, this can be even worse, as your lack of experience directly impacts the quality of play for 3 or more other players as well, and that knowledge just adds to the pressure as you try not to get grief. Something like Overwatch is even more harrowing because it introduces classes and roles you have to know and perform well to help your team on top of basic competence. Good luck if you have to go healer in your first hour of play. And this is where Turf War shines, because the goal of the game type is to cover ground, a mechanic that can be understood instantly, performed adequately from the very beginning, and doesn't require besting other players in order to do so. Which means your lack of skill doesn't negatively impact your performance here, at least not too much. You can perform an activity that is still paramount to your team's success while building essential skills to become a more active player in matches to come. By incentivizing newbies to cover the map with ink, Splatoon presents a mechanic that inherently teaches you the game's maps by forcing you to run around them and learn where ink does and doesn't stick and how best to get to these places. More importantly though, this also means that even if you lose every encounter with an opposing player you stumble across, it's largely irrelevant. You're still helping your team by covering ground, helping inch up that coverage percentage which determines the match's victors when all is said and done. And by not publicly showing death counts, new players will never feel embarrassed if by the end of the first few matches their deaths are in the double digits. Spending the first handful of games in Splatoon just covering the ground with ink sounds like a comparatively boring experience, but luckily the game has a wonderfully satisfying arsenal of cartoonish weapons that feels satisfying to fire, and the resulting ink animations, sloshing sounds, and the inherent satisfaction of filling an area of color makes this foundational mechanic surprisingly fun. Just think, how many times you found yourself slowly filling in the margins of a notebook with a pen back during school or something? That weird sense of coloring catharsis forms the backbone of Splatoon's angle, then adds a charming atmosphere and fantastic gunplay on top of it. As you get more confident, learn the maps, and stumble into encounters with other players, you begin to naturally get better at the combat portion as well, until you're splatting along with the best of them. This is where I feel Splatoon succeeds so well where other shooters tend to stumble. From the very first match in Splatoon, every player is contributing, and by the game's most fundamental design, no player is ever a burden on the team. From the word go, you're having fun, and in a genre where so much of the first handful of hours can be the gaming equivalent of pulling teeth, this is a huge accomplishment. Anyways, that's it for now, thanks for watching, and remember to be the games you want to see. I am Games, signing out.